as he exits.
Hello, everybody. This is Rod, your captain speaking. We are currently 30,000 feet in the air, and we haven't even left the airport. We just lit the joint. Just kidding, a little pilot humor there. We like to have fun. Our destination today is Casablanca, Morocco. So everyone, sit back, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for takeoff. We will be arriving in 6 hours.
Are you looking for a better way to play player props or daily fantasy sports? Well, look no further than Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the leading over-under daily fantasy game. Why? Because it's so easy to use and win. You can make your picks in under 30 seconds and win up to 10 times your money in one day. Right now, we have a special offer for our viewers and listeners of the 7-Footers podcast. All you have to do is sign up now and use the promo code 7Footer, and Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Yep, that's right. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So, join the over 150,000 others who found a better way to play and download the Prize Picks app today.
Seven Footers gang, what is going on? It is the NBA postseason, and things are gonna get heated. What's going on over there, Jarod?
Oh, enjoying this lovely day we have out here. It's like sunny and 70. I mean, thank God. It's like, whew, get us towards this spring and summertime, please. Winter brutal up here in the Northeast.
Yeah, didn't that groundhog,
Punxsutawney Phil.
Yeah, the groundhog. He screwed us again.
Yeah. I mean, he usually does. That's usually his MO. He usually
pretty
does.
much. Yeah. Well, let's get into it here because we got to talk about the play-in, which kicks off tonight as we're recording this on April 12th, but will be one day in, of course, when you guys hear this. And we are going to break down the matchups here. And Jarod is going to tell you guys what he is seeing in potential series that are going to happen and make predictions for you guys. And we're going to go through each conference here. And let's kick it off with the number one Miami Heat, and they will play the 8th seed. Now, that could be the Hawks, Cavs, Hornets, or Nets, depending on the play-in, which, of course, kicks off on April 12th. So, Jarod, talk to me about the number one Miami Heat. I mean, a lot of these teams, these teams right here, the 4 teams I named, have grit, and you don't want to lose to them.
No. Look, the Heat, first of all, shouts to the Heat. Kudos getting the 1 seed. They did what they had to do. Erik Spoelstra on many people's Coach of the Year lists. If he wins it, I would not be mad at that. He's done a hell of a job with all the inconsistencies and injuries in that lineup all season long. My concern about the Heat is, again, can they score enough points when it matters? I know everybody's like Tyler Hero, Bam, but those guys have not been consistently effective all season long, and that worries me. Kyle Lowry is a little bit older. All those things to me are concerning, Jenna. Now, all that being said, it doesn't matter in the first round if they get the Hawks, the Hornets, or the Cavs. They would beat either one of those teams in 5 games at most. Now, if for some reason the Brooklyn Nets lose the play-in game tonight and then they win the next game and get the 8th seed, that a potential Miami-Brooklyn matchup. Now, that's a whole different can of worms. Because while the Brooklyn has its defensive deficiencies, they can score a ton. And as good as Miami is defensively, we're talking about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving here, right? They're going to get theirs. And can Miami score enough if that were to be a potential matchup? Now, the reality is I don't think that'll be a matchup because the Nets, I believe, will win tonight, get that 7th seed, and end up playing the Celtics, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I think it's going to be Hawks versus Heat. And, look, we talked about the Hawks all year. I was just disappointed with the energy they came out with to start the season. Again, I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. Trae Young's whole deal about it's hard to get up for the regular season when you've accomplished what we've accomplished. It's like, well,
okay,
my God, you've been to 1 conference finals and you may not go back again. Keep this up. You know what I mean? You may never make it back again. No, seriously. The thing is, people assume it's so easy to make the conference finals and the finals. It's not. It's really hard. And you got to come with the right attitude. And I just felt like this Hawks team this year just didn't come with the requisite attitude. And we saw what GM Travis Schlenk said this year. Was like, maybe I shouldn't have brought everybody back. I mean, it is very rare that a GM just wildly says that in the middle of the season. Like, that is crazy. So, I don't think Miami would be a problem for this team. I mean, the Hawks would be a problem for the Heat. So if it is in fact the Miami Heat and Atlanta Hawks, what I'm going to be watching for is the Heat's offensive execution. Now, the Hawks defense ain't great, so it's going to look really good. Maybe that's what they need, right? They need to kind of play against a team like that who's got poor defense just to get them kind of in a rhythm and in a groove on what they're going to do in terms of scoring points. We know what they can do defensively. As good as they are, Trae Young's going to get his, but I don't know about anybody else. And John Collins, we're still not sure about his injury situation. Is he playing? Is he not? So I'd say Heat in 5 in that series. Moving on.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think this is pretty much a done deal here at this point, unless, the Nets give us some type of wild card, which that could very well happen.
Sure.
So
very possible.
Crazier things have happened, and it's the NBA. We know things can get a little wild. But next matchup here, the number 2 Boston Celtics. What a season turnaround. Now, they would play the number 7 seed, which could be the Nets or the Cavs. And obviously, these are two very distinctly different teams. One more frightening than the other, of course, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But, I mean, hey, you don't want to face the Cavs either some nights.
Yeah, so, this series, Jenna, first of all, kudos to Boston and head coach Ime Udoka. Jenna, Boston started the year 10-12, something of that nature. Below 500, they were, right? Remember, we were like, ooh, this is not looking good. Do you know where they finished the season in adjusted net rating in the entire NBA? Just take a guess.
I mean, don't tell me, tell me.
Number 1. 1.
Oh, I didn't think 1.
1. They shot all the way up to number 1 in adjusted net rating. What a turnaround. They finished the year 10th in adjusted offensive rating and 6th and first, in adjusted defensive rating. Again, the Phoenix Suns had that top spot all year. And the Celtics just last 10 or so games pushed ahead. Now, to be fair, the Suns were resting Heat because they already figured we got the 1 seed locked up. Let's chill, whatever. But be that as it may, the Celtics turnaround has been incredible. Now,
it has.
If they end up playing the Cavaliers, I see a 4-0 sweep, maybe 4-1. The Celtics guard too well, and the Cavaliers don't score enough on offense. Darius Garland is it, really. I mean, they don't really have another player consistently that can create and make his own shot. And honestly, you put Marcus Smart on him, he's going to have a rough awakening to his first playoffs, if in fact it is the Cavaliers. But as you know, I do not think it'll be the Cavaliers. I believe it'll be the Brooklyn Nets. And that is a whole different can of worms. Once again, look, the Nets have their issues, we know, defensively. But they'll be an underdog in this series, and rightfully so. But would it surprise you if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving beat the Celtics in 7 games?
No.
Wouldn't surprise me, right?
Yeah.
Mainly because we know what their track record is in terms of big games and shot making. And, in the playoffs, when things grind to a halt and you need to get a big bucket, KD and Kyrie are the ultimate shot makers in the idea of your defense is, okay, well, we're just going to make something out of nothing. Like they're really good at that. And when you have them on the floor with someone like a Seth Curry who can space and shoot up threes, listen, all you need is Bruce Brown. If they can get decent minutes from Nicholas Claxton, this series could be far more dangerous for Boston than they want. And Boston is without Robert Williams. And he's a big part of their defense.
Big loss.
And as good as Al Horford is, Al Horford's on the older side of his career now. Now look, Tatum and Brown do their thing and they're excellent, but they're not prone. They can easily get into a situation offensively where they stop their ball movement and they get into too much one-on-one heavy isolation. And if they do a steady diet of that, that'll play right into Brooklyn's hands because no ball movement, cool. We can just worry about make or miss with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We'll live with those odds, right? So I just think that would be extremely interesting. So I'm going to watch in a potential Nets Bucks series how the Nets defend in terms of just giving the requisite effort. Like play the type of defense you played in the playoffs last year, right? Not the regular season defense or the defense they played at the beginning of this season when they were actually playing well defensively. If they're doing that defensively, guess what? I think this will be a long series, and it could go either way.
Very, very interesting. I mean, yeah, to your point, when you're looking for shot makers, of course, you're going to look to Kyrie and KD. But also, I mean, look at the postseason experience that the both of them have combined. Not to mention, Kyrie Irving's one of the most clutch players in the NBA, especially when it comes to those types of moments. So, yeah, going to be an interesting one there. But that Celtics defense is too tough.
Excellent.
All right, let's talk about the number.
I didn't make my prediction yet. Prediction. If it is Nets Celtics, I am going to say Brooklyn in 7. They win game 7 on the road in Boston.
Okay, just because you said that, I'm going to say Boston wins it at home, game 7, and it is going to be the biggest upset of the postseason.
Just to go different.
You heard it here first, kids.
Just to go different.
Just to go different. I mean, I didn't come up with that on my own. Okay, let's talk about the number 3 seed Bucks versus the number 6 seed Chicago Bulls. Is this a no-brainer?
I mean, defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, and everyone talked about how Milwaukee rested all their players at the end of the last game to duck the Nets in round 1 so they would play the Bulls. Shout out to my colleague David Thorpe on True, who says, I don't know if they were ducking the Nets so much as they no, we want to play Chicago instead. And when you think about that, that makes sense. Chicago's reeling. They're injured. Lonzo Ball will not be here for the playoffs. Zach LaVine's dealing with an injury. You know, the Chicago Bulls aren't the team they were at the beginning of the season. And this is the Milwaukee Bucks talking about, the defending champions. We know they have zero answer for Giannis on Chicago. He's going to do his thing and dominate that series. Drew Holiday is going to be a nightmare guarding Zach LaVine. I mean, it's going to be tough sledding for him. And not only that, Jenna, travel is a big deal in the NBA in the postseason, right? How many times you got to get on a plane, do all that? Milwaukee to Chicago is about a 40-minute flight. Okay? That is, I mean, Milwaukee could not have picked a better first-round opponent than the Chicago Bulls. A team that I believe they will sweep 4 games. Milwaukee will be resting comfortably, awaiting the winner of Boston, Brooklyn.
Yep, I think you're spot on with that one right there. I mean, come on. It is what it is. And unfortunately, huge losses for the Bulls in LaVine and Ball there. So let's talk about another matchup that I personally think is probably potentially the closest out of, you know, all of the ones that we just talked about in the East. The number 4 seed 76ers and number 5 seed Raptors. Of course, you'd say they're the closest because they're this back-to-back, but we know how close the East is. Don't come for me, mathematicians.
Mathematicians.
You know it's my weakness. Come on now. What are you seeing out of this matchup here? Because this is going to be a tight one. I think it's going to go 7 games.
This one's interesting because remember, in order to play in Toronto, a visiting player must be fully vaccinated. Matisse Thybulle is not vaccinated. Now,
did I read it right when I read that he only took 1 dose of a 2-dose vaccine?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. I only saw some headlines.
I can't even get into the logic behind why he does what he does. He did what he did, whatever. Put that aside. He is ineligible to play games in Toronto. Now, you might be asking yourself, Gerard, Matisse Thybulle, but they got Joel Embiid and James Harden. That's all that matters. You would think so. Matisse Thybulle is their best defender. He is so critical to what they do defensively. And him not being there on any potential road games in Toronto, that's a problem, right? Because you'd likely put him on Siakam or Scotty Barnes or something like that. And
plus, he's your number 3 player.
Correct. So, you know, this is going to be a problem for them. Now, of course, the Toronto Raptors have zero answer for Joel Embiid. Like, literally none. No matter who Precious Achua, Boucher, Scotty, it doesn't matter who you put on him. Joel Embiid's going to do his. Now, what I will like to see in this series, Jenna, is Joel Embiid. Can he play in a postseason up to the level he's played in the regular season? Because he has not truly dominated a postseason yet.
No.
And I want to see that, right? If he is, in fact, the best player in this series, then the Sixers will win. But if he's coming in a little bit less, we got problems. And I will say this. James Harden, look, Scotty Barnes is going to be a nightmare guarding James Harden. Like, he is going to, like, Scotty's so long and strong, and he ain't going to bite on a lot of those pump fakes. And look, if James Harden is doing the thing where he's trying to get fouled instead of trying to score, look, because it all depends on what the referees do from a officiating standpoint. Are they going to have a tight whistle or a loose whistle? If they have a loose whistle and Embiid and Harden go to the free throw line 60 times, then this will be over in 5 games. And the Sixers will just kill them because they're going to get into the bonus early in every quarter because those two are the best at drawing fouls. But if the referees do not call the game that loosely like that, and call it tight, or don't call it tight, hey man, I don't know how they're going to get secondary offense besides Joel Embiid, because James Harden has not looked good this year at all. And so, look, I think this is going to be a tight one. I want to say Raptors in 6, but the Raptors worry me too because I don't think they score enough points. As good as Siakam is, and as good as Scotty Barnes has been, and Fred VanVleet, I just, I worry about their offense. Like, can they get enough points and generate enough points? They're going to be a problem defensively. Nick Nurse is going to scheme his way through a lot of different things here. I can see this going 6 or 7, but I'm going to lean ever so slightly 76ers in 6.
Okay. Bonus question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a make or break postseason for James Harden?
I mean, yes. Look, I'm a huge Harden backer and supporter and have been, high on Harden ever since he was at Arizona State in college, but his OKC days. But every postseason, it's something, right? And he has not had strung together a good postseason front to back since his early OKC days. He had a couple decent ones in Houston, but those big games where he's a no-show, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
He forced his way out of Houston to Brooklyn. Force his way out of Brooklyn to Philly. Hey, man, if you don't put something together and play to the level where you're capable of in the postseason this time, this is going to be an ugly stain on his resume that he's not going to be able to erase. So it's going to be one of those things where, yeah, James Harden, great regular season player, but can't get it done in the postseason. And that'll be his legacy. It's going to be unfortunate. It's going to really be unfortunate.
Chills. All right, let's move to the West because we need to chit chat about the number 1 Phoenix Suns. Now, like the East, they will take on the number 8 seed. That could be the Pelicans, Spurs, Clippers, or Timberwolves. A bunch of little wild cards in here. Not so much the Pelicans for me, of course, or nearly the Spurs, but you never know. So talk to me about this one. I mean, are you worried about the Phoenix Suns at all when it comes to these teams?
No. Jenna, the Phoenix Suns have been a machine all season long. An absolute machine. They finished the league with the best record, 64-18. Number 2 in adjusted net rating, as I mentioned, behind Boston. But again, they kind of put it in the slow gear down the stretch. Number 5 in offensive rating, number 3 in defensive rating. Look, this team came back this season on a mission. They were up 2-0 in the NBA Finals last year and lost 4 straight to the Milwaukee Bucks. And that game 3 could have turned a different way. They go up 3-0, things look a lot different, right? They came back on a mission, similar to, I feel like, how the Spurs came back on a mission all those years ago against Miami when they lost that Ray Allen game, and the next year they came back and they were like, no, we're getting back to this point and we're going to win it. Now, long way to go before we get there, but that's the mindset that I saw from Phoenix from game 1. They just came out from the jump and was like, no, we're going back. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson, like this team is just, they're so good. They truly are. The sum of their parts is greater than any one individual, right? Like that, it's just they're just, as a collective, they're so good. They're on a string. They're following Monty Williams' lead. I think round 1 is just going to be an opportunity for them to, like, all right, let's get ourselves back into gear here. I actually would like for them to kind of get punched in the mouth a little bit in round 1, only because in game 1 in round 1, only because, I mean, they've really been kind of on cruise control all season. Right. So I kind of want a team to come out and jump on them early and have them wake up and be like, oh, it's the playoffs. Time to turn our gear up a level and really get ready. But, I don't see Phoenix having any problem with any of the teams that they will potentially face in round one. I see this as a 4-game, 5-game at most.
Agreed. I think the only thing that could really hinder them in that first round was if like Kawhi came back suddenly healthy, and that's not
Right.
happening.
And I don't see that happening. Yeah.
Exactly. So let's move on and talk about this one because it'll be a close one, in my opinion. The number 2 seed Grizzly Cubs against the number 7 seed, and that could be the Clippers or the Timber Puppies.
Yes,
what would
indeed.
you do if it was the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves?
Well, listen, I'm Team Grizzly. Shout out to my guy Trip J, John Morant, all the guys down in Memphis. I'm still debating if I'm going to head down there for game 1 or game 2. But look, Memphis, they're ready now to win a playoff series. Like this is the stage they're at now. They finished the year with the second best record in the league, and they're the clear number 2 team in the Western Conference. But it's time now that they move to the next level, which is, okay, we win a playoff series. We're going to win 4 out of 7. Now, a series against the Clippers or Timberwolves will be tough because on the Clippers side, Ty Lue, hell of a coach, Paul George. I mean, listen, these are veterans who are battle tested. But what did John Morant tell us? We ain't ducking no smoke. We climbing all the way up the chimney, right? Like that's what he told us, right? They're not ducking nothing. They're ready, right? They're ready for all comers. And so now what I want to see out of Memphis is, can they execute in the half court when defenses know this is what they want to do? In a series against the Clippers, the Clippers don't turn the ball over that much, right? And that is how the Memphis Grizzlies like to get out and run, right? That's their jam. All right, this team turns the ball over. Cool. We're gonna do our thing. And the Clippers don't turn the ball over like that. Like, again, experienced veteran team. So it'll be interesting to see again when Ty Lue gets the game to slow down, forces them to play in the half court. What can they do? Can Jaren Jackson Jr. execute? Can Desmond Bane execute? Can these guys create shots for themselves, right? Beyond John Morant, we know he can get to the rim. Can other guys create and score consistently? That's what I'll be watching for. In a matchup against the Timberwolves, because the Timberwolves are young like the Grizzlies are, Timberwolves can be a little bit careless. They play with the number 1 team in terms of pace in the NBA, so they can get very careless with the ball and turn it over. This could be a track meet, right? We could see games in the 120s, maybe even 130s, right? Just because of how these teams will like to get up and down the floor. Karl Anthony Towns would be an X factor in that series because, again, as I said on our betting show, can he be the best player in a series? I mean, he's certainly talented enough. He can. And if you get Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell doing their thing, my only fear with those guys is the consistency. You'll get that night from Anthony Edwards where he goes 13 of 20, but then you'll get a night where he goes 1 of 18, right? And in the postseason, that's those nights kind of bite you again when teams know, okay, this is the set they want to run, this is their counter. How do you work against that? So I would say in a series against the Clippers, I would still give the Grizzlies the edge, but I think that would go 6, possibly 7. But in a series against Timberwolves, I like the Grizzlies in 5, potentially 6. Either way, Memphis, I believe, moves on to the conference semifinals.
I would have to agree just because of, surface level, the confidence level that Memphis has. And I feel like John Morant has been proving himself the entire season for this specific moment. So I'm very excited to see him.
We ain't ducking no smoke, climbing all the way up the chimney.
Of course he said that. I mean, he's an incredible soundbite, no matter what. All right, let's talk about the number 3 Warriors and the number 6 Denver Nuggets. And something to point out here, Steph Curry could be coming back sooner than we thought. So something to keep at top of mind too. And not to mention, we've been talking about these Nuggets, how there's one man carrying this team.
Nikola Jokic, who, man, likely, at least he's my MVP, back-to-back, hell of a season. Jenna, he's carried Facundo Campazzo, Austin Rivers, Will Barton, Bones Highland, JaMychal Green, and other players who, unless you're a deep NBA fan, you're like, who? He carried a team that has those guys playing significant minutes to the 6th seed in the playoffs. That is incredible. He is without 2 other max players in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., neither of which will be back for the playoffs.
And that's a serious statement. He's without 2 max players right now.
Yep.
Incredible.
The fact that they're a 6th seed is a testament to how great he is. But Jenna, against this Golden State Warriors team, and we'll talk about them in a minute, even if Steph is not available and not 100%, I just don't think Denver has enough. Like there's just not enough there. I mean, who are you worried about on that team besides Jokic? Right. Yeah, exactly. And again, in the postseason, now they're not going to be able to stop Jokic. He's going to get his and do his thing, but I don't trust those other guys. Like Aaron Gordon couldn't be the best player in Orlando. Like, I mean, what?
That was funny.
What are we doing here, right? There just is not enough. Now, if you tell me, they get a healthy Michael Porter Jr. and healthy Jamal Murray, well, that's a whole different ballgame, but that's not happening. So, Jenna, I mean, the greatness of Jokic can maybe win them a game, but I see Warriors in 5. I see them making pretty light work of this because, again, Kevon Looney and Draymond Green, I think, can handle themselves okay against Jokic. They're not going to double, and that's where Jokic kills you when you send the double. The Warriors will be like, nah, we're not doubling because we don't trust it. Nobody else on this team scares us. So, yeah, you can do your thing, but nobody else on this squad is going to beat us. And remember, the Warriors all season played top-level defense. They finished the year with the number 2 defense in adjusted defensive rating. So, not concerned.
Yeah, I think it's a wrap with that one just because, I mean, Jokic has to be running on fumes at this point. So,
Played
not
70,
that and I don't mean
75,
that in a way
77. He played a ton of games. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not in no way, shape, or form doubting him, but like that, it's just like not humanly possible at this point.
It's just too much. He needs more help. And those guys there's not enough help on that team,
Exactly. Let's talk about a high pressure matchup in the West. The Mavericks, the number 4 seed Dallas Mavericks, and the number 5 seed Utah Jazz. This is a huge series for the Jazz, in my opinion, because they have a lot to prove. And I don't know what's going to happen after this season if they don't make it past the first round.
A lot of things. Okay, first, let's start with the Dallas side. We do know that Luka Doncic has suffered a calf strain, and his status for game 1 is up in the air. Jenna, that changes the whole dynamic. No Luka, and
real
Utah
quick,
can win this.
Can you tell us the healing timeline for a calf strain in the regular season?
Depending on the severity, 14 to 18. I mean, that 14 to 18 days. That's already done with round 1 in 18 days. We're into round 2. So, and again, Luka Doncic is the type of player that we usually go in these playoff series when you're picking who's going to win. Well, who's the best player, right? Because the best player generally wins the series. Yeah. Luka Doncic is that guy, right? He can be the best player in this. I mean, he is the best player in this series. But if he's not healthy, and if he comes back too soon and he's limited and not as effective, this could really hurt Dallas. So I'd be mindful here. Defensively, I like what Dallas does. And look, for all the problems Utah has, and look, Jenna, they got a lot of problems, okay? This is a team, and Donovan Mitchell said it, like, we got to go to the conference finals this year. Well, my guy, you have set yourself up for a tough road to make it there. Because let's say you do advance and you get past Dallas in round 1. You get Phoenix in round 2. Like, I just, this is tough. Now,
damn.
The Utah Jazz did have the number 1 adjusted offensive rating in the regular season. We know they can score points. They shoot the hell out of the ball and take a ton of threes. Donovan Mitchell can average 50 in a series. We saw it in the bubble, right? Like, he can do that. We know about Rudy Gobert defensively. We know about Bogdanovich. Like, you said it, this is a make or break postseason for the Utah Jazz. If they flame out in round 1, I'd be very surprised if next season they're running it back the same. I mean, at least
one superstar is leaving.
Well, at least Quinn Snyder, head coach, he's likely gone. At least that's happening, I would say. And then the question is, do they make Donovan and or Rudy available to figure out, hey, man, we got to do something different here in Utah, because this is, and everyone's down on Utah, and rightfully so, right? The last couple seasons, they've been like a top regular season team, and they've underperformed in the postseason. Well, I mean, it's put up time for them, right? We're like, look, we heard enough talk from y'all, and we're going to dissect every little moment now, right? Like, ooh, is Donovan looking off Rudy? Ooh, are they not getting along? And then they had all these closed door meetings. We're fine. We're this, we're that. All right, man. We'll see when you lace it up come playoffs where you guys are at.
And how the chemistry is, because you have a short period of time to find it and gel together. So that should be interesting. Really quick, if you were the front office in
In
Utah,
Utah.
who would you make available?
You can get more for Donovan, I believe, in a trade package, but with Rudy, it's a very specific way to build your team around, right? You need specific, they have to change things, because as good as Rudy is, and we talk about, he's one of the better defenders in the history of the league, but the way they play, they need better defense on the perimeter, right? Because to have him protect the paint and also switch out on the smaller guards, that's a lot, right? It's too much.
Yeah,
for
you're pulling double duty
for what he has to do. You need to change that around. So it would be actually easier for you to move him, but you might get back less in return. Although, who knows? There was a report that went out today, Jen. I don't know how accurate it is, but there was talk that if the Jazz flame out early, the Warriors would be interested in acquiring Rudy Gobert in the offseason. Now, again, they got to figure out salary cap, all that. But imagine a team, and they'd have to give up some young assets. Imagine if Jonathan Kuminga, I don't know, James Wiseman, and salary that has to match Rudy gets sent over there. I mean, because that's the thing about Golden State, right? That people always talk about. They don't have enough size. They don't have size. I mean, that would be an interesting way to play for them. So again, I don't know how true that is. I just saw it that float out there, but
yeah. Well, I mean, imagine coming up the court and you're looking under the basket and you see Rudy and Draymond Green. I'm running the other way. I will score for you. I will go back.
Well, the question there, though, is that, again, because of Rudy's salary, it's not enough to give them Kuminga, because those salaries don't match. So, yeah, the young people, but you need the money to match. Draymond they're not trading the staff. They're not trading Clay. Well, Draymond's I guess it'll have to be Andrew Wiggins. It'd be Wiggins.
Yeah.
You go Wiggins. You trade Wiggins and a bunch of the young guys, because that would match salary-wise. Yeah, you go Wiggins. It'll be interesting. So imagine a Donovan Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga. Could be interesting. Anyway, again, I don't know how true that is or what have you, but that's something I saw earlier today. I was like, that's interesting.
So what's your pick for Dallas and Utah?
My pick in that series, okay, it all hinges on the health of Luka Doncic. If Luka's healthy and play, although here's the thing, I think he's going to play hurt. That's what they're going to do. So, I know it's tough, especially with the calf. Dallas in 6, but I'm not 100% confident on that, because if he tweaks it and he's like how Harden was last year in the postseason on one leg and ineffective, Utah could take that. But I want to say Dallas in 6 right now.
Okay. I'm not mad at it. But if Luka doesn't play, then
Utah.
Agree.
Then it's Utah. Yeah. It's Utah.
Very interesting. Well, guys, tonight that we are recording this, April 12th, the play-in tournament kicks off, and things are going to get heated, and they're going to change really quickly. So make sure you stick with us throughout the postseason. We got you covered.
As always, folks, you know where to find us. We are part of the Props Network. Of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all that, at 7footerspod on Twitter, at 7footerspodcast on Instagram, at JS Hector, at Jenna Lemoncelli. And until next time, peace.
Spent a couple years out here with these raps, trying to have a plan that we made come true. Applied to some jobs, but I ain't hit back. I don't wanna